Good morning, everyone. I am obviously not here, so you are going to have a video for the rest of our lessons from yesterday or the block day, depending upon which class period you're in. So you should get out your Unit 4 Day 7 notes covering the LCM, and we're going to review a little bit before we go into the next part. So taking a look at what we did do, we started talking about the least common multiple. Remember, it's the product, and product means multiplication of those numbers whose whole numbers that is shared between two or more numbers. So one of the strategies that we did the other day was taking a look at factors of 12 and 30 and playing around with those and just writing them. So if we had factors of 12, we were looking at 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, 72. And then if we're looking again at the factors of, or multiples of 30, so 30, 60, 90, 180, we're looking for what they have in common. So the smallest number that appears in both lists. So that LCM of 12 and 30 is 60. The other strategy that we looked at was more helpful when we have monomials, so numbers with variables being multiplied. And we did the prime factorization of both of them, which you guys are pretty good at already, as we've established and done it pretty much every day for the last 2 weeks. Then we looked for the GCF, so what they had in common, and brought those down. And then we brought down all the leftovers and multiplied our factors together. So what I want you to do is flip your worksheet over to the back and take a look at what's on that. The question is, how do the LCM and LCD relate to each other? And if you can recall from previous years, LCD is the least common denominator. And that least common denominator is important if we are going to be multiplying, or if we're going to be adding and subtracting fractions, but it also is important for if we are going to compare them. So that least common multiple and the least common denominator are really asking us to do the same thing, whether it's a number or if it's a monomial that goes with it. So it says, find the least common denominator for the pair of fractions. So we have 3a and over 25 and 17a over 20. If we were to add or subtract these fractions, we couldn't do that because they don't have the same size pieces. This has one whole being split into 25 parts, and this one has one whole being split into 20 parts. So those aren't the same numbers, so we need to get a common denominator. So if you'd like to employ this strategy that we had and start looking at the multiples, you can do that. So multiples of 20 are 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120. And the multiples of 25, so think about when I do multiples of 25, I think about a quarter. And if I have 1 quarter, that's 25. 2 quarters is 50. 3 quarters is 75. 4 quarters is a whole dollar. That's 100 pennies. And we can pause right there because we can look and find that common multiple. So they both are multiples of 100. 100 is the multiple of both of each of those numbers, 25 and 20. So our LCD is 100. That would be the number that we'd want to get on the denominator for both of those. Here's our next one. We've got 6k squared and 8km. Those are not ones that we can list out altogether, so we might want to do our prime factorization strategy. So I'm going to split up 6 as 3 and 2. And I'm going to be typing these because my penmanship with a mouse is not the best. So we've got 2 times 3, and k squared is k times k. And we'll put the dots in because that's the prime factorization, which means we're multiplying them. 8 can be split up to 4 and 2. 2 is a prime number, but 4 is not, so we can split 4 up to 2 and 2. So I'm going to put that down right there. We've got 2, 2, 2, and then K and M. Again, we're going to put our dots because we're talking about multiplication. Then I want to find what they have in common. We have a pair of 2's in common. We also have a pair of K's in common. And then what we did on the other side is we said we brought everything else down. So we have to bring down a 2, we have to bring down a 2, and we have to bring down that 3. We have to bring down the K, and we also have to bring down the M. So we've got 2 times 2, so that's 4. 4 times 2 is 8, and 8 times 3 is 24. K times K is K to the second power, and we have our M. So the least common denominator of 6K squared and 8KM is 24K squared M. So one of the things we're also going to be asked is if we can compare two fractions together against each other. So we want to replace each of these boxes with a less than, greater than, or an equal to. If you need to make yourself a note, remember we said that makes the L, that's our less than. So one of the strategies that we're going to do this is by getting a common denominator, and we do that by finding the least common denominator, which is the same as the least common multiple, and we're looking for the least common multiple of 6 and 9. So one of the strategies you can do is write them out. Otherwise, what we can do is do our prime factorization. So 6 is 3 and 2. We've got 9 is 3 and 3. Or we can use our number multiplication chart and take a look where 6 and 9 would have common numbers in both of their columns. But we've got 2 times 3 and 3 times 3. They have a 3 in common, and we'd have to bring the other numbers down. So we'd have 2 times 3 times 3, so 6 times 3 is 18. I want to make 5, 6 become something over 18. And then again, we're going to compare that to what we get for 7/9 as something over 18. So to keep this fraction actually equal to itself, we have to think about what times 6 is 18. And to get there, we multiply by 3. So we need to multiply 5 by 3 in the numerator so that it stays equivalent. So 5 times 3 is 15. So 15 over 18. And in order to get 9 to become 18, we multiply by 2. So I'm going to do the same in the numerator. So times 2, and that gives us 14. And then we have the same size fraction in the denominator, and we can look at the parts in the numerator. 15 is larger than 14, so we're going to put a greater than sign. So we're going to do that one more time with this fraction, and then we'll be done with our notes for today. So we're looking at 15 and 10, and we want to find the least common denominator. So the ways to split up our 15 are 3 and 15. Ways to split up 10 are 2 and 5. I said 15 earlier, I meant 5. They have the 5 in common. We'd have to bring everything else down. So 2 times 3 times 5. 6 times 5 is 30. So my goal is to make these new fractions out of a denominator of 30. And we want to write equivalent fractions from what we had before. So 14/15. In order to go from 15 to 30, I think about a clock. So double 15 minutes is 30, so times 2. And I need to double 14 on top as well. So times 2, which gives me 28. And my equivalent fraction for 9/10. In order to go from 10 to 9, I need to multiply by 3. So times 3, and I also need to do the same in the numerator. So times 3. So 9 times 3, 27. 28 is larger than 27, so 28/30 is going to be larger than 27/30. And that's one strategy for comparing these, and that's what I'd like you to focus on to reinforce finding your LCMs and your common denominators. Your homework is going to be posted on Haiku. Please work together, stay on task, and if you have other things that you need to correct, the answer key is on the side and you can do that at this time and then hand it in to the sub. Have a great weekend and I'll see you all on Monday.